Hey friend, welcome back to Burn Stress, Lose Weight. Today is the fourth and final installment of this mini series that I have been bringing back, which is the emotional eating stress types, the stress archetypes that drive you to bamboozle your best laid plans. I wanted to end our four-part series on the people pleaser or the Fawn Response, particularly this week. If you're in the United States and you celebrate Thanksgiving, we have so many holidays coming up in the next few weeks that I know this episode is going to resonate with you in where small moments of people pleasing your host, people pleasing some of your friends, wanting to fit in, wanting to belong with the social gathering that you're in, where those small moments can really undo a lot of your wins. If you're brand new to me, welcome. I am Dr. Priyanka Venugopal. I'm an OBGYN physician turned stress and weight loss coach, and I'm here to help the professional woman who self-identifies as an overachiever feel unstoppable inside out. And what I mean by that is not just grind your teeth and use a lot of willpower and endless amounts of discipline to follow through on the plan that you know is going to help you feel better in your body, but to start to identify your patterns in why you ever go off track when you have a strategy that you know is going to work. I do want to preface this by also saying that sometimes we don't follow through because our plans, the strategy that you have to lose the weight you want, to achieve your body goal, feels extremely punishing. If that has ever been you, I see you. It isn't necessary to punish yourself to your weight loss goal or to your body goal. There is actual science and strategy to optimize your hormone health, to help you feel better, to lose the weight you want without it feeling like a terrible experience. That is for a whole separate episode in why proper planning is a necessary part of you achieving your goal. But this episode and this entire series is designed to help identify why is it that we ever go off track. It has never ever been a discipline problem. If you identify as an overachiever, you are a disciplined person. The real reason has been stress dysregulation. So far on the series, we have talked about the escapist or the flight response. We've talked about the advocate, which is the fight response. Last week, we talked about the procrastinator, which is your freeze response. And this week, we're diving into the people pleaser, which is the fawn response. You'll recognize this archetype immediately. We all have some flavor of people pleasing in us, particularly if you are a professional woman. This is likely something that has been modeled to you since you were a young child. You're someone that likes to say yes to requests. You're someone that wants to be a team player. You maybe get a lot of self-worth and value in being of service to other people. You're someone that people rely on. You are someone that solves problems. You're the fixer in your family or in your team. And you're generally the person that is really good at keeping everyone else around you comfortable, particularly in social settings. If you use food or alcohol to fit in, to belong, you feel awkward or guilty or embarrassed at saying no to something or being different than everyone else, then this podcast episode is going to be just for you. And if this episode and this mini series has resonated with you, I would absolutely love it if you would take this episode and share it with a friend or your local community where maybe another professional woman who has overachieving tendencies like you and like me could benefit from what we're talking about. I'm so excited to have brought back this mini series. It has truly been one of my favorite episodes to record, and I hope you have felt a sigh of relief as you've been listening along for the last few weeks in where your habits and some of your patterns actually come from. Let's dive into the people pleaser stress type and how to do the sometimes uncomfortable work of changing this pattern. Being in a stress cycle response is normal for our very human brains. When we perceive some serious discomfort or maybe even perceive a threat, our brain is hardwired over the many years, many decades, especially as overachievers. Our brain cannot tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a social event where you are going to maybe be different than everyone else. That's what we're talking about today. So the intention of the series is, number one, to normalize that you're going to experience real life stresses. You're going to have those moments that feel truly sticky and uncomfortable because it is messy being human. And also, when we become aware of our patterns, of our habits, when we become aware of how stress takes us off track from executing consistently, we can start to gain more power. So that's what you're learning on the series, where I go into the ABCD bridge. I've talked about in every episode so far. We're going to walk through it today also on the Fawn episode and really understand that the stress in itself is just not a problem. We can walk our way out when we become aware of the experience that we're in. And when we start to do that, The beauty of this work, the beauty of what we're talking about is you will start to blow your mind with how you can start creating consistent results on and off the scale. The work that we're talking about applies with weight loss, but it will apply to your professional life. It will apply to hitting a goal with personal relationships and how you can start to create that level of consistent results even when you're living the life of a busy professional mom, which is full of sticky moments and stressful situations. As I've been using the Think, Feel, Act cycle over the last few episodes, it is going to be a framework that we use to show us that all of our actions to ever snack, graze, nibble, always is happening for a reason. Our actions and our inactions never are happening in a vacuum. They're happening because of an emotion that we are feeling or an emotion that we're trying to avoid. That's ultimately what the stress cycle responses are all about. And those emotions that we feel happen because of a thought we are having. So I know a lot of times high achievers especially will want to just double down on the action plan. What the series is intended to really shed light on is, yes, you want to change how you show up to get new results, but to do that, we have to first uncover what were you thinking and feeling that drove you to go off plan to begin with. And if we can start to unravel and become deeply aware of what you were thinking and feeling that drove you to go off plan, that drove you to have this level of unchecked stress, you will create so much more empowerment and really feel unstoppable in executing on your plan in a way that you said you would. So let's get into the Fawn stress cycle, or what I like to call the people pleaser. This is going to be a flavor of stress cycle responses that touches some people more than others. Some of you might not identify as a people pleaser. You might actually identify as a very confident, very social person where it's easy for you to connect with others. Maybe you identify as an extrovert. And even if that is you, some parts of this episode are still going to apply if you find yourself eating in social situations when your gut or your body is not actually hungry. You might be on the other end of the spectrum. That's kind of like me, where you identify someone that has been a people pleaser in social settings. Maybe you have felt a little awkward or a little bit different or just different from the group, and you find yourself wanting to be a certain way, talk in a certain way, show up in a certain way, so that you have that feeling of fitting in and belonging. So let me just start by saying that that desire that you have to belong, to be a part of a group, whether it's with a friend circle or in a community, it could be in the school PTA. It could be with your neighbors at the bus stop, with new friends when you move to a new town, on the soccer field when you're taking your kid to soccer practice. It could just be in your actual friend circle that you've had for a decade. That desire to belong, to fit in the group, to not be the one that is different is normal. And a lot of that desire to belong and to be a part of the group, to not be different, is steeped in a survival mechanism that is eons old. It's hardwired into our brain, the primitive part of our brain, that being different, not fitting in, not belonging is going to inadvertently get us kicked out of the herd, right? Old mentality. Getting kicked out of the herd is very naturally associated with our inability to survive. So we just want to normalize our desire to belong, to be a part of the group, to fit in with the group of people that we are with is very normal. I know for me, that feeling of wanting to fit in and feeling like I was just different from everyone else started when I was 4 years old. I feel like I've told the story on the podcast, but if I haven't, I can remember from my earliest memory, which just shows how hardwired this desire to fit in, to belong, to not be different is. I remember when I went to preschool as a 4-year-old, the very first thing that I noticed was that I looked different. I had darker skin, I had black hair, and everyone in my preschool, at least from my memory, this might not even be factual, but my memory is that everyone looked different than me. I also didn't speak English when I started preschool. I spoke Hindi. That was the language that my parents had raised me with at that point. So I didn't even speak the language, right? So talk about being totally different. And all I can remember, and I'm having goosebumps even as I share this, but I don't remember kids being nice or not nice. I just remember this desire that I had of, I just want to fit in. And what's so fascinating is that feeling that I had at the age of 4 grew up with me. It was a feeling and an experience that I had that started to evolve as I got older. It showed up differently in elementary school, and it took its own shape in high school for sure, and in college. And what's interesting, even with that feeling of wanting to fit in, wanting to belong, as I grew up, as I became more responsible, became more of an adult, that feeling also evolved. It became smarter. So the way that I might have showed up in college or even in my adult life as a mom, as an attending when I was in practice, I might have showed up very confidently in certain ways, but on the inside, that feeling was still there of I want to fit in, I want to belong, I want to have approval, external validation from my peers, my colleagues, my bosses, right? Senior partners, parents, right? We can think about how often this feeling, why we're people pleasing and in this fawn stress cycle is I just want someone else's approval of me. And if we don't get it, I remember so many times I'm like, oh, I'm not getting that feeling of validation. Because we haven't done the work or understand how to internally validate ourselves, we start to feel inadequate. Here's some scenarios that you will find yourself in if you are in the people-pleasing stress cycle. You might have a thought like, I don't want to be different. You might think everyone else is eating or drinking, so I should too. You might think, I don't want to be rude, or what might that person think if I order differently? You might think they are going to think I'm so weird if I come to this social event and I don't eat anything. You might think I don't want to order differently, or you might even take this to the next level and convince yourself that it is toxic or restrictive to say no to food when everyone else is saying yes. You might think I don't want to ruin everyone else's fun, or everyone else is having this shared experience. I want to also. You might find yourself thinking, I need a really good excuse to eat differently. You might find yourself wanting to make up allergies or say kind of crazy things so that you have an excuse to say no. When you have some flavor, and I want you to take this through the filter of your highest wisdom in your life and how this shows up for you in social settings when you're with other people. Really check in when you think those sentences of, I don't want to be different, I want to fit in with everyone else. What is the emotion that you feel in your body? In my experience, the feelings that I've noticed the most will be inadequacy, lack, scarcity, loneliness, awkward, embarrassment, even shame. And when we are unaware of the fact that these thoughts are creating these emotions, and we have in our primitive brain hardwired those emotions with a saber-toothed tiger, right? This feeling of embarrassment or awkwardness feels like a serious threat. Here's what our next actions end up being, our actions and our inactions driven by that stress cycle response. You'll convince yourself that saying no to certain foods is unhealthy or toxic. You will try to justify your food choices, which makes you act more awkward. I know that I've totally done this. You will eat food when your body is not actually hungry, or you'll eat types of foods that you know your gut doesn't love or isn't aligned with your goal. Rather than throwing food away or saying no to something, you will treat your body like a trash can and you'll just eat because everyone else is, or because you don't want to throw it away. Your social activities, if your social activities are always centered around eating out, they never get challenged. You end up eating, snacking, nibbling, tasting, drinking when your body's not hungry and you didn't actually need the nutrition. So obviously, as you can tell, all these actions that we take when we are in people-pleasing stress cycles and when we are having a hard time saying no to food in social settings because we don't want to be different. Yes, obviously, as you can see, this is going to sabotage weight loss wins on the scale. It is going to create inconsistent actions where maybe Monday through Friday, when you're in your office, you're able to eat in a way that hits goals, but maybe Friday night and Saturday night, or every time you go on girls' night, or every time you go out with a social group, you end up undoing your results. You'll notice that all these actions are getting in the way of consistent execution in your life, whether it's social situations or not. But here's the thing that is equally also important. I also want you to see what your brain is learning every time you do this. Every time you have a hard time saying no to something because of that people-pleasing tendency, because you don't want to be different from the group, here's what your brain also learns. You learn that you need to eat or drink to belong in a group. Your brain learns that you should be doing what the group is doing to be able to fit in. You learn that that feeling of loneliness or awkward or embarrassment is just too much for you to handle. You learn that you need to be someone that always fits in, which might also impact parenting with your kids. You learn that rejection from someone because listen, some people are jerks and they will say something if you try to order or eat differently than them. So you learn, your brain learns when you people please that rejection from that one person is a dire situation. It's like a saber-toothed tiger. You don't learn that rejection is just a normal part of being human and navigating real human relationships. You aren't able to access compassion and curiosity for why you feel inadequate or lonely or awkward just being your amazing self. In fact, you're so occupied by fitting in and eating the way everyone else is eating and drinking, having something in your hands you don't feel awkward, that you're not focused on the meaningful connection and conversation that you could be having. The reality is that everyone actually wants to feel belonging. Everyone wants to fit in with their local group, whether it's at the bus stop, at soccer practice, in your social setting. Everyone actually wants this. So it's not just you. But let me tell you why this is especially tender for me as a mom and why this stress cycle response is one that I have really wanted to work on for myself and become deeply aware of, because I have been, as a kid, as I shared with you, that people pleaser that wants to just fit in and get along with everyone and go with the crowd and never be different. I've always wanted to be that person. The reason that this is particularly important is because I want to model to my kids how to say no in a group, how to be different, how to allow that feeling of awkwardness and embarrassment and loneliness if it aligns with their personal values. And this is the part that is hard. This is the part that feels really sticky because that feeling of being different really does make us feel like something is under threat. But for me to teach my kids these tools, I have to go first. And I think that really the intention of this episode is to invite all of us to think about what is it that we want to be modeling to our kids in terms of saying no to large groups, saying no, being different, letting ourselves experience that awkward feeling, having our own back through that experience of possible real rejection, and coming at the other side where we haven't abandoned our values. Brene Brown, who is a famous author and speaker, shares one of my favorite quotes around fitting and belonging that I want to read to you. She says, "The research shows that belonging is the opposite of fitting in. Fitting in is assessing a group of people and thinking, what do I need to say? What do I need to do? How do I need to act? And changing who you are to fit that. True belonging never asks us to change who we are. It demands that we be who we are. If we fit in because of how we have changed ourselves, that isn't true belonging because you've betrayed yourself for other people." Now, this quote is obviously not just applied to how you eat in social settings. It applies to just how we show up in the world, how we show up in our communities, with our friend circles, with people that we are meeting. And I want to tell you, the reality is that this does feel hard at times, especially if you're someone that has a history of wanting to fit in and trying to fit in. However, this is where I really like to utilize the ABCD bridge so that you can catch that feeling, the very normal feeling of wanting to fit in, wanting to belong, and walk yourself through that emotional experience so that you don't undo your weight loss successes and really you don't abandon your true values. So using the ABCD bridge, when you're in that people-pleasing stress cycle, you can usually tell when you're in it. Step one is A, awareness. Just catching the fact that you are in that stress cycle, catch the thought that you're having. What are you thinking that is making you feel inadequate, lonely, awkward, embarrassed? What are you telling yourself about that situation? You might be telling yourself, I just want to fit in. I don't want to be different. I want to do what everyone else is doing. Start to catch the sentence in real time. Next is B, B for breathe. The whole intention of this step is to introduce a natural pause between the thought you're having and the action you take. When we don't do this step, we are often just driving in autopilot. We have so many autopilot thoughts, really reflexive habits of we just start showing up. This is like when you drive to work, you don't even know how you got there. A lot of these stress cycle responses, this applies to fight, flight, freeze, and definitely fawn, are habituated patterns. The reason that you go off plan or you're inconsistent is habituated patterns. So B is about introducing a natural pause that drives you to take a minute between your thought and your action. It's going to get you out of that primitive brain, which is on autopilot, and activate your prefrontal cortex. That is your most evolved thinking. The next step is C, courage. This is where I want you to practice feeling the discomfort of feeling different. Allow that awkward feeling, allow the feeling of embarrassment, feeling the fear of possible rejection. Allowing that emotion, it's a vibration in your body, is hard, especially if you've not done it. But let this just be a muscle that you take to the gym where you allow that emotion and talk yourself through the experience. You don't want to be judging the fact that you're having this experience, but talk yourself through it. This is me feeling nervous. This is me feeling scared. Just naming the emotion that you're in has been shown in research to decrease stress signals in your amygdala, in a part of your brain. So really catching with that breath, introducing a pause and talking yourself through that feeling. This is me feeling awkward. This is me feeling lonely. Having your back in that experience and then practicing courage to allow the emotion is going to game change how you execute. In the next step, which is D, do it anyway. Do it anyway is all about executing on the plan the way that you said you would. Doing it anyway is one of those things where you might historically have associated following your plan with a lot of willpower and grit and grind, and you have to like muscle through. That is not what I mean when I say D for do it anyway. When you've done steps A, B, and C, that's the way it goes in order, where you catch your thoughts with awareness, you take a breath. Notice that my tone and tenor in my experience. There's no yelling at myself. You're not allowed to eat that food. You're not supposed to do. There's no talk like that to myself. Steps A, B, and C is catching my thoughts, introducing a natural pause, and really allowing myself to feel uncomfortable while tenderly having my back. Doing it anyway is an act of discipline, but it is one that I know that professional working moms have in spades. Practice doing it anyway is going to start to prove to your brain that you will not die if you say no. You will not die if you are different. Somebody might make a comment. Someone might be a jerk. You might experience some rejection. Some friendships might change, and you will not die if that happens. Here's what also might happen as you start practicing this endeavor, this ABCD bridge, when you feel awkward, uncomfortable, or embarrassed. You might start exploring new social activities, new hobbies as the adult that you actually are now, aligned with what you actually like. You might find new friendships and new people with interests that are actually aligned with you, common hobbies and things that are separate from just eating out. You will start to prove to yourself that two things can be true at the same time, which is I can create connection and belonging, and I don't have to eat to do it. As you do this, you're going to start practicing and flexing a new muscle, which is it is possible to create that feeling of connection and belonging while honoring your body goal, while honoring your true values. And in fact, in just this practice, you might inspire someone else to do the same. One of my clients was just sharing in the group that this has been a big piece of her work, how she orders in social settings and at work events. And she wanted to be someone that always ordered the same as everyone else. But a lot of our work was her unraveling this. And she shared with us in the Unstoppable group how she ordered the food the way that she wanted, in a way that she knew not only aligned with her body goal, but really felt good for her gut. And a couple of her coworkers actually commented on how amazing her food looked, and they started ordering what she was ordering. One of the things that I think is so fascinating when we start to take new action, when we start to challenge our beliefs, is we start to open up so many new possibilities for what our lived experiences can actually be as professional working moms. I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode on the people pleaser and this specific type of stress cycle response. This is the fourth out of this 4-part series on the 4 different stress types that will ever be literally the only reason that you don't execute on the plan you have. Thanks for spending this time with me on Burn, Stress, Lose Weight. This podcast has seriously been one of my most favorite parts of sharing story, strategy, and science with professional women who self-identify as overachievers. I hope that you're walking away from today's podcast episode feeling a little more full of possibility. I promise that you don't need perfect circumstances in your life to feel unstoppable inside out for you to achieve that body goal that would help you feel your best. And with the right strategy and support, getting there is inevitable. This four-part series really touches the heart of what gets in the way for overachieving women to achieve their weight loss goals, and I'm so glad to be sharing it with you. I have also been teasing a project that I've been working on now for many, many months. I'm going to be sharing some behind the scenes of this project over on Instagram. So if you are not yet following me, head over to at Burn Stress Lose Weight over on Instagram so you can get a hint of exactly what's coming. Burn Stress Lose Weight has a new chapter on the horizon over the next few days or few weeks, depending on when you're listening to this episode. And I cannot wait to share this bold vision that we have for our mission moving forward. If you enjoyed this episode and you're loving this series, share this episode with a friend. And if you can take a moment to leave a rating and review, I would be so grateful. Come meet me over on Instagram, take a look at the sneak peek so you get a little idea of exactly what's coming, and I will see you in next week's episode. Bye, my unstoppable friend.